Welcome to Miniature Wargaming Labs. On this episode of Build With Us, we're going to discuss and show how we made our version of a Rebel Lord for our games of Necromunda, using our three rules of it must be all Games Workshop components, it must be cheap to construct, and it must be fast to construct. So let's see how we did it. So when we go through the Book of Judgment, and we look at some of the rules that they have in here, we see an entry for a Rebel Lord. Now, we have here an artistic interpretation of a Rebel Lord, this particular one, Lady Creed. And so I saw this model and decided I could use some Rebel Lords in my Necromunda gang. When we read the equipment entry, there are two loadouts that are available. Now, all Rebel Lords get 4 Digilasers, but when it comes to actual weapons they carry, there's a mastercrafted las pistol and stiletto sword, or a bolt pistol and thunderhammer. So we can see in the example that they give us with Lady Creed, she's going to have the las pistol and stiletto sword. Now, the value of Necromunda is that not all models are made. You get the kit bash and take your own spin on it. So let's look at how I interpreted some of the Rebel Lords. So we have here my interpretation of the Rebel Lord equipped with mastercrafted stiletto sword and las pistols. Now what I found is that when creating some of the Necromunda characters on the side, you can use a lot of the Age of Sigmar and just Necromunda them up. So for example, the base I started with was a Vampire Lord, one of the older models. This was done in Citadel Finecast, unfortunately, but was able to work with it. I took one of the pistols from the Deluxe set, armed on her hip, and then one of the little computer pieces from the Deluxe set, and then just threw a little servo skull on the back. Now, I could have chopped off her hand and taken an Escher pistol and stuck it on there, but what I find when doing kit bashing, what's the least amount of work you can do to get something that's table representative and using only GW bits. But as I saw, this is only one loadout. Now, I was trying to figure, what am I going to do for the bolt pistol and thunderhammer version? So let's take a quick walkthrough on how to do that one. Now what I like to do is find bits that can be salvaged. So Brian from this channel, he is a bits trader, so he found this. Now what this is from the Mordheim set. This is one of the zombie characters, used to be a witch hunter. And what I like about it is it fits the high gothic aesthetic of Necromunda. Just needs a couple of technology pieces thrown on there to make it work. Now, when you're going to do something like this, what you have to do is give a quick turn on the runway here and see what we've got to work with and what we're going to need to change on the theme. Now, with this one, it was supposed to be a zombie character. Now, if you're playing Necromunda, maybe you could do something where you say this is a Rebel Lord from Hive Mortis that has a zombie problem. I didn't want to go with that. I wanted something a little bit more useful. So let's see what makes this character a zombie. You notice right off in his left arm, you see it's broken up, twisted, messed up. So that'll have to go. We also see a bolt that was shot into its chest. Well, that'll have to go. Now this arm can go either way. In the original version of this model, I can tell when I bought it, someone clipped off the torch it was holding right here until they were going to do their own mod and gave up part way. But that works for me because I got this guy cheap. I think what I'm going to do instead of putting the thunderhammer, which would be my first inclination, I'm just going to chop this arm off and try to figure some way to blend these two sides. Now on the back, you see another bolt. That'll be easy to deal with. I'll just cut that off and maybe put a servo skull out of there. Now an issue here will be this gash in his head. So we can see in the metal that this is supposed to represent damage the zombie took, and the pieces of metal have flayed. So I'll have to patch and fill that in. So let's get started. The first thing I like to do is get this guy affixed to a base so I can work with him. So using the $5 tweezers I got from Michaels, let's get this metal off. Wow, that's tougher than I thought. Alright, let's use the good ones. I hate using my good ones on metal because I don't want them dulled. But if that's what it takes. Happy accidents. Okay, so we got that guy off. Let's look at how clean the cut is. Now remember, when you're cutting with the clippers on metal, you have to watch out for mushrooming. It's a deformation in the metal. Where you clip it, pieces of metal will create a curved shape up. So just real quickly, I'm going to clean up the bottom of these feet because I want a smooth, flat surface for him to adhere to. So I've got that done. Now I've got my Necromunda base. I'm going to use a 25mm, so that way he matches my other Rebel Lord, and most of my other models are on 25mm bases. So since I'm joining metal to plastic, what I'm going to do is use some Gorilla Glue. This is their super glue. When joining unlike materials, I like to use Gorilla Glue, and of course the top came off. Let's get that secured. So I'm going to apply the glue on the bottom of his middle feet. A nice big glob of that. There. Now when I sight these, I want to as flush as a surface as possible, which you can't always get with the Necromunda bases due to the amount of texture. So I'll just find something maybe right here. I can feel all points of them sticking down. And let's do a quick turn, see how that's looking. Now we'll hold on for a second here. It takes a while. Once it dries, it's nice and strong, but it can take a while. And that's why you can have a super glue accelerator. But make sure you've got them sighted where you want before you use this. Okay. Be careful where you point the nozzle. I've sprayed myself in the face with this before. And that'll harden it up right quick. Great. So now I've got him affixed to his base. And that'll give me something to work with there. So now I want to discuss, what am I going to do about the arms? Now I'd like to take off both of them. And ideally, I'd want the gun in there next to the holster. And that would be the Thunderhammer one. Now what's interesting about this model is the arm comes out and then ties back into the cloak. So if I take this arm off, I'm going to have an issue of what to do with the blank spot right here. Because this is a textured fur, I'm okay with that. But I've got to decide if I take this arm off, which I'm going to have to make the design work, what am I going to replace this with to hide the scar I'm going to create? So let's just jump into it and get this arm off. I'm going to probably run a cut right here because I want to get as much as the rotten zombie arm off. And it looks like if I grab it right there, following the clotheslines. Now before you make this cut, rotate it and see where the back half is going. Just don't pay attention to where your eye is and what your eye sees in the model. See what's the cut line going to look like. Okay, and always remember to cut too little, not too much. It's kind of like woodworking. You can always make a second cut if you don't take off too much. So let's take that off. Got a nice clean cut. That's a nice smooth, takes off a lot of the ragged edges there. Now let's see, get rid of this hand here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it off at the wrist and see what do I have left to work with. So I can see right there I have his little zombie hand still attached. But I got a nice clean cut there. Now how to do that? Okay. So let's take here and we're just going to shear it straight off. There we go. Let's get the little piece of thumb here. That'll happen sometimes. Alright. Now let me move to my X-Acto blade. Alright. Here we go. And let's just get the remnants of like that thumb that's on there. Get this a little off. So what we can see is taking off the hand, you can look at the shiny part there. So that's the damage I've got to cover up at some future point. So it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Now, what about that bolt sticking out of his chest? Well, you know, probably with that, I'll just cut the bolt off, and when I paint him up, I'll just make it look like a carbon scoring from someone shooting him. Now, if I was so inclined, I could probably actually work with the X-Acto blade and smooth this out a little bit and just make his armor look whole, or I could probably just paint around it so you wouldn't notice the blemish. Let's get a little bit more off here, and be careful of your thumbs. I don't cut myself, but I've seen it happen. So there, we got that cut off. Alright, looking good so far. Now let's see, let's get rid of this right arm. Like I said, line up here. Alright, looks like if I take this arm off, it won't touch. You can see there's a belt here. It goes around him. Now, when they designed this model, they might have had it so the arm actually joins to the metal of the body. But I can actually see a little bit of light there. So if I take this arm off above the elbow at the coat, should have a clean separation. Let's check both sides, like I said. Remember, let's make it one good clean cut. So and squeeze. There we go. That came right off. So, and remember, we got the one last little bolt in his back. Let's take this off. Now that one's actually joined to the armor a little bit. That won't matter. They'll be behind him. And I'll probably end up sticking a little Cerberus skull out there so you won't even notice it once it's primed and painted. Alright, so he's looking pretty good. Now something I want to do here is I want to smooth this out a little bit. And I always believe in filing your models. So our guy is coming along. Now, I was looking around for what kind of arms I could pick out for this guy. And I started playing around with a couple crazy ideas. So, what about an old dwarf gun arm? I could probably stick that in there. Maybe put a magazine in the side, remove that dwarf emblem. But looking at that, the hand's just way too out of proportion for there. So I don't think I'll go with one of the old dwarf bits. So when I see this, I think, well, maybe one of the Imperial Guard arms, maybe one of the AdMech arms. Those are popular. But I think what I'm going to go with is the Genestealer arms. So let's go grab some of those. So this is how I store my bits. Now I know a lot of people, once they're done with assembling a sprue, they like to clip all the little bits out, put them in little tubs. That's what Aaron and Brian do. I do not do that. And the reason is, I use this as a way of organization. So let's say someone's kit bashing something else, and they say, I got a right arm from an Imperial Guard this, or a left arm from an AdMech that. Instead of going through a tub of right arms or left arms, what I like to do is just organize and say, okay, I've got a sprue from the model they're representing, and I should know what number it is, and I can just pull it out. And it's actually a good way to, use it like file folders. And say, okay, so I pulled these guys out. Now what arms am I going to want to use? Now I've got some good choices here. I've got both left and right arms without hands. So if I had a particular weapon in mind, I could just use these and swap out whatever weapons I wanted there by gluing them on. So let's say I wanted to blend Space Marine Scouts with some Gene Stealer Cult arms. This would allow me to do it. But I think what I'm going to go for is I know it needs a bolt pistol. So right here, there's a bolt pistol arm and hand, conveniently all one piece. Now, since this is a right arm, that does mean that it'll look as if the person drew from his holster on his left hip. So it won't work quite right, but you know what? It'll be faster. And so I don't want to linger. I'm not an awesome kit basher. That's not my thing. I just like to make little cuts here. So when you cut off a little arm, first thing you want to do is just kind of hold it next to it. Is it going to work? So we can see, and what you want to do is line up. So where's his shoulder? I could probably even cut, if I wanted to, and lose this texture, I could probably cut all this off and just stick the arm right on. But I kind of like that texture. It gives him that look of a fallen lord. I mean, he's got all these scratches out here. It looks like he's been hiding in the underhive away from Lord Helmar. But what that means is I'm going to have to cut the plastic piece, which will actually be easier to do anyway, and less traumatic to the model I'm working with. So let's think, where would his shoulder be in this? Okay, we know that we look at his old arm, his elbow came down to here. So plan, where should I make my cut on this guy? I think probably right around there. And then I can cant him up to the side. Okay. So there. Now remember, do it from front and back. Because a lot of times you only want to cut once. So it looks like I'll make a cut right along here. I'll cut that portion off, then he'll fit in there. So I only have one of these. Let's hope it works. Now something I want to do and advise you on is that when you're cutting, cut above where you're planning to make the actual line. Now the reason I recommend this is because that gives you a chance to say, did I cut it at the right plane that I want? I can slowly start fitting it into place. So that looks pretty decent. Makes his upper arm look a little too long, but I knew that was going to happen. And since I didn't cut off too much, let me make another cut. I like the angle, so let's replicate the angle of the cut. Now, you see on the back side, it's a little curved. So what's going to happen is when you try to cut with this, it's going to want to slip. So you got to use a little bit of strength to try to hold it into place, get a feel for if it's going to cut the angle you want. All right. So the way it's going, let's see there. So now I think, now where does the elbow come on the human body? It comes right below the rib cage. So let's see. Let's say his rib cage, get his waist, rib cage right there. So just follow through my thinking process. So his elbow's a little low. All right. That's why I said better to make multiple cuts than to ruin the piece. All right. Shear a little bit more off. Let's see how that looks. Better. Better. We're getting there. Let's see what he looks like when we flip him around. I'm not liking how that looks. I think we got too much of a slope coming down this way. So let's see if we can even that out. I think what I'll do, take a gamble here. Let's cut it the alternate way. Let's cut it on the bias. And there we go. Let's see how that rough cut looks. That looks better. More of what I'm going for. Now, something I do have is poster putty. So if you ever have a doubt of how it's looking, you can always put some poster putty, set it down, give it a little twirl on its catwalk, make sure that you like what you're seeing. Okay, I think that is where I want it to be. So now I've got that done, I am going to get the mold lines off. Now here's something. Since the gene stillers have this type of ridged elbow pad, I have to decide, do I want to keep that ridged design or do I want to shear it off? I think to make it look less gene stealery culty, I think I'm going to smooth it out, give it more of that old Warhammer Empire look, like more like a metal or plasteel plate. Now something I like to do is drill out the barrels. Brian, you've seen from some of the other channels here, he is not a big fan of drilling out barrels. So now what you want to do when you're drilling out a barrel, or the way I do it, is I like to put a nice little score here and make a nice little cross here. That way I can figure out where center is. Then I take the tip of my X-Acto blade and I just make a little pilot divot. So what happens a lot of times when you put the drill into plastic is, depending on where the leading edge is, it'll want to skew off a couple degrees to one side or the other, and I want it to go dead straight in. You don't need that deep of a hole, because remember, your paint job is going to cover it up. And if you use that scoring X technique that I showed you, just there we go. Fine and dandy. Alright, now let's think of what jaunty angle he's going to carry his bolt pistol at. That looks pretty good. He's looking off to the side here. I think it seems to want, remember, go where the model wants you to go. It seems to want to fit like that. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. And I think on a table, if my gang decides to hire a Rebel Lord or go up against one, I think that'll work fine. And since I'm joining plastic to metal, now something I'll advise you, a lot of people who work with metal like to pin. And what pinning is taking metal shaft, I normally use paper clips, and you drill a hole in here, sink a part of the paper clip, drill a hole in here, sink the other part of the paper clip, and then join them together. And it just creates kind of like an armature that makes them a little bit more secure. I don't like pinning. Not only is it time consuming, sometimes I like to destroy my models, rebuild them again. Maybe I had a change of heart. Before I glue this, let's make sure it looks good from the back. Got to make it look like his arm's actually coming out of a sleeve there. The thing I like about Gorilla Glue is a lot of the times it'll fill in any gaps, so I don't have to green stuff or putty it in. So look, I already got one weapon down on this bad boy. Now let's think, what am I going to use for this weapon? I've already made it look like he cross-drew, and this isn't actually large enough to fit that, but remember, this guy is going to run me about $5, so it's going to look $5 worth. And it's going together pretty quickly. So let's find what I'm going to use for his left arm. Now, part of the reason I picked the Gene Stealer Cults is I liked this left arm. Their little mace thingy. Not a big Gene Skiller cult player, but I had the models. And they play Necromunda, so I went with it. So let's get this guy out. So I have to admit, when I was thinking of a Rebel Lord, my first thought was Inquisitor Cotiez. And not many people use him, but he has a Thunder Hammer. And this Rebel Lord is going to be equipped with a Thunder Hammer. Now, Thunder Hammers, you think of the Space Marines, but I didn't want to give him a Space Marine Thunder Hammer. I wanted a little something different. And when we look at Cotiez's Thunder Hammer, it doesn't look like the Space Marine kind. But I just couldn't give him, say, a hammer from Age of Sigmar, because when you look at the 40k Thunder Hammers, they have, you see this little power relay, this little generator right there. So I wanted that. So I can either get an Age of Sigmar weapon with a hammer and try to put this on it, or I can take a 40k and turn this into a hammer. Being inspired by Inquisitor Cotiez's model, I thought, what can I use as a hammerhead? Going through my old bit box, found this dwarf one. So what I think I want to do is marry this dwarf hammerhead to that model. And I think that'll look nice. Let's do another check before I start cutting this bit up. Remember, always line them up. Try to simulate what it's going to look like. Make sure you're happy with it before you start cutting too many pieces off. I might actually I was thinking of just cutting off spike head right there, doing a 1-for-1 swap. I think it will look better. I don't know. Maybe dropping it down all the way to the top there. Well, there's only one way to find out. I might also chop that chain off. It does add so this chain here, that helps you identify it. It's a Gene Stealer cult bit. Adds a little character to a model. It also chains him to his weapon, but I could probably let that go. So let's see, where would we know where we can now use this elbow to sight off where we're going to put that elbow. I'll probably flip this guy around so I have a little bit more of a bead on his elbows. And given the way he's holding his weapon, he'll probably have his Thunder Hammer down. And that'd probably be a good look. Have him looking off to the side, pistol up, Thunder Hammer hanging down, ready to come in swinging. Alright, so let's see. Okay. What would he look like? Because I want to make sure that this future Thunder Hammer isn't going to hang down and start dragging across the ground and leave him cockeyed when I set him down on the base. So there's the top of his elbow. So he'll look something like that. That's not too bad. Let's flip him around. So I think I'd probably go straight in. Let's go for a nice little cut here. I want to flip that around. I don't want it to mushroom on me. And I just want a nice, I want this cut to match up to there. I think you can just follow this plane. Let's bring this down. There we go. Now I think that's going to be little too short, but it gave me a sense. Am I going in the right direction? So let's line them up again. Okay, not bad. I think I will need to bring it down. Let's check from the front again. All right, it's looking good. See now, plastic mushroomed a little bit on me. You can see there's like a little fringe going all around the cut mark. That's where the blade touched the plastic and the plastic deformed out of the way instead of cutting smooth. There. Now let's see how this guy's going to line up. So put this right here. Liking that so far. Let's see him from the back. Remember, check him in all directions. Make sure he's going to sit where you want him to. I think this has got a little bowl to it. I think that's from where I cut it. Didn't flatten out enough. So let's give it a flatter surface to join to. So if you're not going to pin, make sure it's as flat of a surface as possible to join the two unlike materials. You need as much bonding surface as possible, because I like to take these on airplanes, even on carry-on, and sometimes people step on my bags. So I got to make sure my models are tough. Alright, now that's joining a lot better. There. Alright, let's check them from behind. Make sure there's not going to be a lot of seam work go into it. Yeah, that should do it. I think what happens, I am going to cut that chain, because you can see where his arm's hanging. It doesn't make any sense that the chain's defying gravity and going off to the side there. Now before I secure it to the model, let's get this hammer on. Because once I secure this to the arm, I really don't want to start messing around with that head. Alright, now let's get this trimmed off. I'm up flush there, and snip. Ooh, that left a ragged cut. That's why I normally like to turn it the other way, so it doesn't mushroom like that. Alright, so let's see. How's this going to join up? Let's see if I like the look of that. No, I think I'm going to bring it down to there. But that's fine. Just try to drop that a little bit. See, that didn't work out too well. It's the only one I got. How am I going to address that? This stuff happens sometimes. I think what I'll do is use the blade, and without cutting my thumb, try to bring it in nice and flat. Not good enough for government work. So I think on this one, I'm going to use my plastic glue. That way it'll fuse a little bit. And then we could probably hide my mess up on the cut, since we'll be pouring the little thunder hammer down. So let's make sure we get this aligned properly. And the thing I like about plastic glue is you get a little time to play with it. I'm sure someday they'll sell an official Forge World Rebel Lord for $80 a model. Looks like that arm is matching up. So I'm going to fix this arm on here while the head of my warhead is a little play still left in it. Let's get some Gorilla Glue on here. So let's use gravity to help us out here. Make sure that arm, we still have a little bit of play in there as the super glue dries. Yeah, you can tell I got those two surfaces flat and really bonded in there. Let's see how I like that hammer look. There, not bad. Remember, your eyes are going to be about 4 feet away from this thing, so it's like, oh, cool, he's holding a hammer, so that'll be fine. Okay, he's looking good so far. Haven't messed him up too much. And remember, when you're converting, it's much like painting. Every time you do a new one, just slight improvements on there. But now, let's start fixing some of the other stuff here. So I checked through my bits box that I took from my brother. So I think I like these ones on the end. I already used this one on my other Rebel Lord. I'll use this one now. So let's get this clipped off. And now let's do some placements here. You want them just jauntily peeking around back here, like over the shoulder, whispering in his ear, or something like that. Okay. Be pretty good. But you know what? I'm looking at this, and I just don't want it coming out of his shirt. These guys need some type of backpack. I've got some stuff here I could probably use. I like that little backpack. I'll probably take it off, flip it upside down. Let's see what we've got here. Let's just hack away. I got plenty of these. Let's see. A little bit thicker than I want, but let's see how it looks on him. Oop. Fingers aren't as nimble as they used to be. Let's see here. That looks, it's not too bad for a first go. Not too bad. Let's see how that looks. So let's dry fit him. And he's got he's got a slight curve to his back. Let's try. Maybe if I flip this that way. That's even worse. So we've got to fit this thing to his back. And we're going to need to scoop it out. That's rounded on a couple different axes. I know I'm going to plug the servitor in there. So I'm thinking I'll put his backpack a little bit higher on his back so that the servitor plug into the bottom, maybe peeking over his shoulder. Might have to trim up his little harness there. Okay, I think I'm ready to fix it. Once again, joining metal to plastic. Make sure you sit there, remember put it off in a distance, line it up. Sometimes you can get too close to a model and you don't see how it fits in the overall look. There. You got a little bit of time, Gorilla Glue. So let's see, okay, it looks good from the top. Side, oh, it looks horrible. Now, I like his backpack. It's got a nice little bolt pistol. He's got his little hammer dragging close to the ground because he's super cool. Let's see, if I plug this servitor back here, see now, if I do this, I'll probably glue him here and here, find a couple different points to anchor him on. That way he's just not hanging off in space, ready to break. And it kind of looks like he's peeking over his shoulder. So since I'm joining plastic to plastic, I prefer to use my plastic glue. The reason is it'll kind of melt both ends of the plastic and fuse them together. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do the bottom of the tentacle. It's going to go right into the... So you can see how I'm doing this. Oh, I forgot to clean him. Probably get this poke up a little bit higher on him. Trim this down just a touch. There That'll give me a little extra height. Of course, got to be careful on the angle. I'm going to cut it, because I want as much as the plastic surface on the cable to touch the backpack. Alright, cool. I like the angle. We got a little plastic touching plastic up there. So I'm just going to squeeze a little drop. So let's give him a spin before we go any further here. We've got the gun, we've got the backpack, we've got the arm. Now what am I going to do about the head? A little gash right there. And I've still got that piece right there to do. So I'm going to look through some of my bits here. Now, like I said, we knew that doing the fur coat was going to be an issue right there because of the exposed metal. It's kind of hidden behind his arm, but we could probably put something in there to hide that. Now my first thought was maybe a little Caradron Overlord bit. Throw that on there. But what I thought would be better is to go to my Zangors and go for either these scrolls or that one. I was thinking about using that flask. So let's get that flask cut off. I think that'll add a little interest to the model. Let's see how that's going to fit in there. Since I didn't bring my tweezers in with me. Alright. I'm going to put a little jam on it. Alright, so let's get this little Zangor flask in there. Let's see how that's working out. So let's do a rundown. Got a Mordheim, a little zombie bit. Got a little Zangor canteen, because you need water in the underhive. Got my Gene Stealer Cult arms here. Got my little Imperial Servitor skull. And of course, my Old World Dwarf Hammer. That makes sense. Now, do I want to do anything about that head scar? Probably not. I'll probably just leave that as a scar. I'll probably just shave this down a little bit. It's a $5 model, a couple of spare bits. So let's give him a twirl. So I think since I started coordinating, hour and 7 minutes, some super glue, some plastic glue, bits from 3 different ranges, and a Mordheim $5 model. And there we got a Rebel Lord. And so now I have my 2 Rebel Lords, the different weapon loadouts. So, I hope you enjoyed going through the thought process and the slow, meticulous work. Actually, an hour, just over an hour is pretty good for putting together your own little Necromunda model. Well, you guys have a great day, and join me next time when I try to figure out what other model will I tackle. Alright, you have a good day.